Today was Woodstock for Capitalists, which is the nice name for the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting that they have annually every year. That's why it's an annual meeting, where Warren Buffett gets up and talks to the stockholders and everybody else about what's going on, right? Now, Warren Buffett has been at the head of Berkshire Hathaway for over 60 years. I think they said since 1965. And so today at their annual meeting, they expected everything to go as normal until Warren Buffett threw a small little wrench into everything when he stood up and said that at the end of this year, 2025, he will be retiring. He will be handing over Berkshire Hathaway to a new man, and that man is going to be Greg Abel, is who he will be handing over the CEO position of Berkshire Hathaway. And that's a huge deal. Warren Buffett himself has been at the helm of Berkshire Hathaway since the beginning, over 60 years. And for him to now finally step down, that could have massive economical impacts for Berkshire Hathaway and all its little subsidies and surrounding everything else, right? So that's a very important thing. What I find interesting, though, is at the same time that he is stepping down, he's also having a conversation with his shareholders, stockholders, everybody else about President Trump's tariffs. And this is what he had to say. I just want you guys to hear this. And then I want to point out to you how interesting the timing is that he is stepping down while making these comments and while these other things are going on in the background regarding Berkshire Hathaway and its monies. So listen to what he had to say. According to him, he says, we should be looking to trade with the rest of the world, and we should do what we do best, and they should do what they do best. This is what Warren Buffett said. He said, trade should not be a weapon, all right? Later, Buffett asserted that this year's market turmoil is really nothing, noting there have been multiple prior instances in which Berkshire stock fell 50% because the Berkshire Hathaway stock has been on a little mini roller coaster, right? So then this morning, they reported the Berkshire Hathaway earnings, which I think you guys need to know so that we can have this conversation about President Trump and his tariffs and what has exactly happened thanks to or because of said tariffs that have been in place for less than 100 days, all right? So according to this, Berkshire reported earnings that showed lower operating profit in the first quarter, all right, down 14.1% year over year. So not just now that President Trump is in office, but year over year, their profits have been down. Their operating profit has been down 14% to $9.64 billion, y'all, $9.64 billion, with the drag coming from insurance operations. The company's cash pile grew, though, to a record $347.7 billion. That's at the end of March. Now, here's what's interesting. The company's stock has been an outperformer this year, rising more than 18% year to date against a 3% drop for the S&P 500. Y'all, that means that with President Trump in office as our president, this year, Berkshire Hathaway stocks have gone up. So year after year under the Biden administration, they were lowering. This year, they are going up. That to me is a very, very good sign. And it's just interesting that you have Warren Buffett sitting there talking about how President Trump is using tariffs as a weapon and he doesn't agree with it. While at the same time, he is seeing positive things happening in their stocks, in their portfolios, everything else now that President Trump is at the helm. And you have to realize that these tariffs play some part in why everything is doing what it's doing. So get this. Trump's April tariff revenue topped $17 billion, which dwarfs anything he did in his first term of presidency, 2016, 2020, or however those numbers really truly go. According to this, President Trump's tariffs became very real for importers last month as the government collected more than $17.4 billion in customs and certain excise taxes during April. Understand that $17.4 billion during April. That was nearly double March's haul of $9.6 billion, dwarfing the smaller spikes in revenue seen during Trump's first term. Remember, we've talked about this numerous times, that during Trump's first term, he did put out tariffs against China and other countries, and President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris kept those tariffs in place while they were in office. So obviously those tariffs were a good thing. They brought in money after President Trump initiated them in his first term. They brought in some money while Biden and Kamala were in office. Of course, they squandered the shit out of all of our money while they were in office. But now President Trump is there. He's got the same tariffs plus some. He's added tariffs. And now we pulled in over 2 months. What are we at? $27 billion in monies that we have made because of said tariffs. I am not upset at our country being able to have $27 billion of revenue coming in, especially since over that same period of time, I'm sure we've paid out even more than that to other countries for their tariffs, because our reciprocal tariffs aren't nearly as high as the tariffs these other countries are placing on us. So although our 27 in probably does not equate to nearly as much as went out, it is still a positive thing. It is going to help offset our deficit, everything. Yeah. This is great to me. This is what Trump had to say. As billions of dollars pour in from tariffs, we're only in a transition stage, just getting started. It is going to get even better. It's going to get even better. But what's interesting to me is that Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett, like I said, he's talking all the smack about how tariffs shouldn't be causing trade wars and all these other things. But Warren Buffett, I mean, he is a smart man. He should fully understand exactly what this is going to do and why this is a good thing. And I think he does. And I think that's also why he is stepping down now, because he understands that things are great. Now's a good time to go. But what's also interesting is that for him, though, these are the headlines that I saw that I wanted to share with you. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway operating earnings drop as cash pile hits record high, which we've already talked about. Warren Buffett's profits fall on wildfire losses as thousands line up to listen to him Saturday, which is today. Wildfires dent Berkshire's profit, cash soars to $347.7 billion. So although he is making money, there are some issues for him in the scheme of things, grand scheme of things. And so now he's stepping down. And I feel like he is stepping down. Maybe, I don't know if it's because he doesn't agree with how President Trump is running the country. Maybe he is worried about things in the economy, the stock market, everything else because of said tariffs. But at the end of the day, it's going to work out. You can just look at the numbers that have already come in and see that it's going to work out. Now, we have to fully understand that nothing starts off perfect and nothing goes perfectly from the beginning. There will be issues along the way. And one of those is the fact that there are some retailers that are basically calling it quits here in the US because of said tariffs. So according to this is from Reuters. I just want to read you a little bit of this so you guys understand. It says, with the end of a U.S. tariff exemption for small parcels on Friday, which we talked about, where they got rid of the de minimis, he canceled it. It went into effect yesterday morning, May 2nd at 12:01 a.m. That de minimis, meaning you can import or they can ship over things here to the United States of America that can go through our ports. If it's under $800, they don't have to pay certain taxes and fees on it. Well, that had been in place since 1935, I believe it was. And yesterday at 12:01 a.m., President Trump said, F that, we're done with it. We're not going to allow that to happen, because places like Shein and Temu and a lot of other specific places that come from China, direct from China, they were sending things out in numerous small packages to use that loophole of the de minimis to not have to pay these import taxes or fees or whatever else. So President Trump said, we're going to do away with that. And anything that's coming in, you're going to have to pay your fees. It's not like we are able to loophole things over in China and other places that I know of. It's possible there are some. I'm not 100% positive there. But the fact of the matter is, President Trump said, we're not going to allow this to happen anymore. You're going to have to pay your part if you're going to ship into our country, right? Now, the downside here is that it will affect sales for a lot of companies and purchases for a lot of companies. And it will affect the things that you and I can go out to stores and get off of shelves, right? Or online. So it says here, some retailers have stopped selling to customers in the United States, while others are seeking temporary workarounds in the hope the tariff rate may be reduced. The removal of the de minimis, which we talked about, the duty-free treatment of e-commerce packages worth less than $800 for products originating from China and Hong Kong, exposes those goods to tariffs of 145% on most Chinese goods following U.S. President Donald Trump's decision last month. The move upended global trade and triggered retaliation from Beijing. According to this, British beauty products retailer Space NK, I don't know if you guys have heard of them before, they've paused e-commerce orders and shipping to the United States, and they say to avoid incorrect or additional costs being applied to our customers' orders. This is what they said in a notice on Wednesday that they sent out. So if you are somebody who orders a product called Space NK, a British retailer, they're not going to ship it to the US anymore because of the tariffs that are going to hit, because they, from what I'm gathering here, it is a British company, but that it ships out of China. So there's going to be other tariffs and things added onto it. And then a place called Understance, which is a Vancouver, Canada-based company that sells bras and underwear that are manufactured in China, told customers in an Instagram post that it will no longer ship to the United States due to the tariffs, saying it will resume once there is clarity. So because of the fact that they manufacture them in China, it might be a Canadian company, and Canada is our northern neighbor. It should be easy to get things in and out. But because they don't produce their own products, because they are having it produced in China and having to bring it in, they then don't want to ship it to us because they don't want to have to pay the tariffs to bring it in from China. So now, because of the tariffs that President Trump is placing on things, it's going to affect other countries who can no longer pull from China to then send to us or vice versa, because they are also hit with said tariffs, right? It's going to change how manufacturing is done for a lot of people. And then I think personally, my opinion, that it's going to give a lot of people reason to start small businesses. Yes, it will take time for production to get into swing. It's not like it's just going to start overnight, but you do have to take into consideration how many retail spaces, how many brick and mortar locations are sitting just bare bones empty over the last however many years, especially since C-19, because prices have gone up, because inflation was a bitch, because of all these other things. There may be a way now that smaller companies can come in, pick up these spaces for less, because the people who are holding on to these retail spaces need to get some money back, right? So maybe they'll be willing to rent them out, lease them out for cheaper. You have online spaces that doesn't cost anything, like a brick and mortar store. You can find ways to manufacture in your garage, depending on what you're doing, right? And then you can sell through e-commerce if you don't want a brick and mortar store for like customers, but maybe you only want it for manufacturing. There's going to be ways that this is going to work. Nothing happens overnight. It will take time, obviously. But I'm a patient person, and I know y'all are patient as well, because at the end of the day, being able to say that we can sustain ourselves without needing to rely on China or other countries for 90% of our products, that's going to be great for our country. That's going to be great for our future generations, right? So according to this, this is what the Understance had to say. They said, we're going from 0 to 145%, which is really untenable for companies and untenable for customers. This is somebody named Cindy Allen, the CEO of Trade Force Multiplier, which is basically a global trade consultancy, right? They said, I've got a lot of small to medium-sized businesses just choose to exit the market altogether. So that is a definite downside, a definite negative, that you do have these smaller businesses or medium-sized businesses that are going to close their doors because they can't bring in from China anymore, or because they're not willing to pay the tariffs to bring in from China, or they don't want to turn around and put the price hike onto the customer. A lot of customers would be willing to continue to pay whatever the price is for the product, depending on what that product is. Now, I did read a post where this woman said that she was buying a certain face cream and it went up 20% because of the said tariffs. And she's like, it's not worth it to me to pay an extra 20% for that face cream that comes from another country. Instead, I will go here and find something in the United States that I don't have to pay as much for, or maybe it does cost as much, but at least it's made here and I don't have to worry about it getting caught in shipping, getting caught at a port somewhere, getting, not even shipped out because China decides they don't want to send the stuff, even though it's already been paid for here in the United States. There's a lot of things that are going to be changing, right? So there's one called O'Polly, which is a British clothing retailer. They increased their prices in the US by 20% compared to its other markets because of said tariffs. And then this is one, Singapore-based fast fashion giant Shein, which we've talked about a couple times, sought to reassure customers in a post on its US Instagram account on Thursday, a couple days ago. Some products may be priced differently than before, but the majority of our collections remain as affordable as ever because Shein sells clothes mostly manufactured in China, and the US is its biggest market. Now, Temu, the other one that we talked about, the international arm of Chinese e-commerce giant PDD Holdings, prominently featured products already in US warehouses on its website labeled local, and a pop-up informed customers there would be no import charges for local warehouse items. But here's the thing. All sales in the US are now handled by locally based sellers with orders fulfilled from within the country. This is what Temu said in their statement, adding that its pricing for US customers remains unchanged, but items imported before May 2nd change will eventually run out. Both Shein and Temu have slashed their US digital advertising spending in the past weeks as they prepared for the change that is likely to hit their sales. And then they're saying here that what's probably going to happen is right now, if you get on TikTok or anything like that, you are inundated inundated with these ads for Shein and Temu, and these influencers who are showing you all the things they've bought from Shein, all the things they've bought from Temu, the unpackaging, the unwrapping, the whatever, the ASMR, all this other crap, right? But you're going to see a lot less of those happening now that those companies aren't willing to pay for the advertising, not willing to pay these influencers, not willing to ship them these products to try to get other people here in the US to watch these TikToks, to be influenced to go out and buy all these things, because there's not going to be a point if they're going to take their whole spiel, which is here's a ton of stuff for a very little bit of money, and now it's a ton of stuff for a ton of money, and it's a ton of crap stuff a lot of times for a ton of money, which isn't crap. That money is hard earned. You don't want to just go blow it on random BS from China, right? So now they're going to pull back on spending here. I'm sure they're going to still advertise in other countries that don't have the same reciprocal tariffs. But what happens when other countries do decide to have the same reciprocal tariffs? I know that there have already been other countries who have jumped on board with things that President Trump has done when it comes to the tariffs and numerous other things. What's to say that's going to stop now just because Trump and China are kind of, butting heads? Although China has said that they are willing to talk to President Trump about fixing the issue with the tariffs and trying to find some sort of middle ground. So that could happen at some point. But at the end of the day, things are definitely going to change. You will see the prices going up on numerous things, but you will also see, in theory, hopefully, more businesses starting up or more American-made products hitting shelves sometime soon. Yes, it's going to take a minute, but again, we have to be patient. I mean, we made it through C-19 with empty shelves because of things stuck in ports. This is going to be no different, but at the flip side of this, it's going to be better for us as a country because we will have brought manufacturing back here. We have brought jobs back to the US. We'll have brought made in America products back to the US. It will all work out, in my personal opinion. So Warren Buffett is stepping down. Trump has brought in a ton of money in these tariffs just in the last 2 months, $27 billion to be exact. And things are going to do what things are going to do. And we just have to sit back and be patient. That's really all I got for y'all. Squirrel Tribe. I love y'all. Goodbye.